Hi there, I'm Tom Field. I'm Senior Vice President of Editorial with Information Security Media Group. Talking today about application detection and response, and I'm very pleased to welcome to ISMG Studio, Jeff Williams, who's founder and CTO, Contrast Security. Jeff, pleasure to see you here in the studio.
Hi, Tom.
As I said, we were talking a few minutes ago. I think the first time we spoke was back in 2008 and 2009 when there was one OWASP top 10 list. There are how many now?
There's about 10 top 10s. We still got a lot of work to do. And what's really sad is that it's basically the same stuff as it was back in the early 2000s.
Conversation hasn't changed. Just there are far more people we have to bring it to.
Yeah.
And we're going to introduce a new acronym to the conversation. We're going to talk about ADR, Application Detection and Response. You have just announced a new application detection and response solution. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah. So security operations really doesn't have very good visibility into the application layer. They see the endpoints, they see networks and infrastructure, cloud, but they don't really see much about what's happening inside applications. Unfortunately, that's where a lot of the risk is. You know, you and I both trust everything that's valuable in our lives to software, finances, healthcare, elections, government, defense, everything. But we're really not doing very much to protect them. We've got a few technologies that came out in the early 2000s, and that's about it. So ADR is attempting to fill that gap.
So take a step back and talk about the growing need for ADR. It is an application economy.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a real gap. Organizations have EDR products to protect endpoints and CDR to protect their clouds and SDR to protect their servers. And there's no ADR. So that's the gap in the market that we're filling. And it works about the way that you would expect. You install an agent into your application layer, protect your apps and APIs, and it detects unwanted behavior and reports that to your SIEM or your XDR or your CNAPP and gives you control back over something that, you know, has kind of been invisible.
Now, talk a little bit about the evolution of attacks on applications, because the adversaries certainly have taken advantage of the gaps.
Yeah, so it has evolved as applications have evolved. So the underlying vulnerabilities are fairly similar, things like SQL injection and unsafety serialization and XXE and so on. But now they're in APIs, or now they're in more complex applications that have multiple tiers and backends and so on. And so detection today requires instrumenting the whole running application. And the attackers have figured this out. So they're sending in complex attacks into APIs and complex attack surfaces that you can't really see with a WAF and exploiting applications.
Where do you see the biggest glaring gaps in detection and response? I mean, just aside from pure visibility, which many organizations lack.
So, I mean, really getting visibility is a big piece of it. Once you understand what's happening, then you can respond to it. We also, as part of ADR, block attacks as well. So it's not just detection, it's detection and response. To help stop some of those attacks, some of the biggest attacks that we see, there's a lot of XSS going on. That's probably the leading one because it's so prevalent. We see a bunch of SQL injection, a lot of path traversal, and not surprisingly, we see a lot of JNDI injection attacks, which is sort of the underlying attack under the log4shell attack.
Right.
But attackers are trying that same attack on, you know, your custom code, all of your systems, not just log4shell anymore.
So what are some of the specific features that you're bringing to your ADR solution that address some of these challenges?
Yeah. So the first thing is what we call security observability. And unlike scanners and, even our vulnerability detection technology, organizations don't have a good view of like what their applications actually do. And so, with our instrumentation-based approach, we can generate that. So we can give everybody what we call a security blueprint of every application. And it shows four things. It shows the full attack surface, not that we tried to, reverse engineer from outside the app, but we actually get it from inside the running application. So we get, that's the whole attack surface. We show the security defenses that are in place for each route. So things like authentication, access control, encryption, and so on. Then we show the dangerous stuff that each route does. And by dangerous stuff, I mean this parses XML file, this accesses the file system, this starts a native process. It's not a vulnerability. It's not an attack. It's just dangerous stuff. So you know what's going on. And then the backend connections. What valuable systems does this route connect to? And with that blueprint, you can really make AppSec a lot easier because now you've got a blueprint. You wouldn't try to do anything else in life. You wouldn't build a house without a blueprint. You wouldn't try to secure a house without a blueprint. It's fundamental to what we do. And then on top of that blueprint, we do behavioral analysis of, how do these routes behave in production? And we can see anomalies. We can see attacks very clearly because, they're doing things that should never happen in a running application.
Now, how does your ADR solution integrate with the traditional tools or the stack that they have now?
Yeah. So like other XDR kinds of tools, ADR generates telemetry about events and incidents that are happening within applications. And we can send that to a SIEM via syslog or other mechanisms. We have pretty rich amount of data. And so we have integrations into SIEMs, like our launch partner for ADR was Splunk. We got a beautiful Splunk plugin to accept this data and make it part of the XDR ecosystem. We can also share that data with CNAPP systems and SIEMs and other kinds of systems like that.
What results can your customers expect to see?
Well, they'll see primarily the most valuable thing they'll see is incidents. And I want to be very clear when I describe that because lots of tools can generate tons of events, like all this stuff happened, but most of it is sort of who cares. We want to get people focused on real incidents that demand immediate response. And so, unlike a WAF where it's anything that looks like an attack, it's saying, here, this is an attack. Well, you got to deal with it. And it's way too much. It could be, millions of events a month. Out of that data, and we are deployed behind WAFs frequently. So people use them in combination, but we see quite a lot of attacks that make it through the WAF. In the last 30 days, we've seen millions and millions of attacks. And of those, 1% get to the vulnerability that they were targeting. And that's the real difference with ADR that you can see is you don't have to see all these possible attacks. It's the ones that reach the vulnerabilities that they were targeting, like a SQL attack that reaches a SQL query. If you got a SQL attack that doesn't reach a SQL query, it doesn't really matter. So we're trying to focus down on that 1%.
Excellent. Where can our audience go to learn more?
The website is a great place to start. We've got a bunch of materials there. You can follow me or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to take anybody's questions about ADR and try to get them to understand this. Or we can share examples of real customers that are using ADR in production and have been using for a good while.
It's a timely topic. Jeff, thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom.
Again, the topic has been application detection and response. You just heard from Jeff Williams, founder and CTO of Contrast Security. For Information Security Media Group, I'm Tom Field. Thank you so much for your time and attention.